Oh, community.
Community.
Community is...
What's it mean to have
I
community?
don't even know. Community is such a hard word now.
It needs to be a place where people don't have to wear a mask, don't have to pretend. There's a place where you experience life with one another and know you're accepted.
Man, it is hard to define, isn't it?
We need community.
If you're not known, you cannot be loved.
But we're definitely coming at this from different places.
Well, welcome to the Grounded Presence podcast, where together we're pursuing a deeply rooted existence. I'm Daniel Powell, and this is the first official episode of Season 2. And this whole season is carrying the title, Craving Community. And yes, we're going to be talking about community a lot. So over the course of this season, I'll be talking to some experts, some average Joes, just a wide wealth of people who have fantastic and profound insights and experiences with community. I've pre-recorded many of these conversations in the series, and I just feel like my life has been greatly enhanced and inspired by engaging in these and talking to some of the people that I've talked to. And I'm truly looking forward to passing all of this along to you as well. So community. Community. Community is such a mysterious thing. And that's my first instinct, is to call it a thing. You know, this really makes sense because I pulled out the dictionary to look up community, and I see all the typical stuff. You know, it's a noun, so it is a thing, right? Then what you see next is about 2 paragraphs worth of definitions of what this thing is. And like all these definitions, they have to do with the way we organize and characterize ourselves, and just the way we divide up the population into certain subsets based on ideas that we have, interests that we share, or just, you know, geographic proximity. So some of the simplified definitions are a unified body of individuals, people with common interests, people living in a particular area, a group linked by common policy, and a group with a common history. So pretty basic definitions of how we divide ourselves up. I read through all those and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, those are all true. Those are all ways that we use this community word in like a really broad context, but they don't really do an adequate job of describing what's meant when we use this word and it carries the depth of our personal experiences with community. Like those previous definitions might express the experience of like an onlooker or, you know, a sociologist who's looking at what this idea of community means in greater society, but none of those ways of describing it really lend themselves to what I hear in someone's voice when they start talking about what community means to them. So that is until I reach this very last definition, and I think it's like definition 3D or something, so it's pretty far down the list. And it's 5 short words. A social state or condition. A social state or condition. So at first glance, you know, it seems pretty broad and pretty ambiguous. But the more I thought about it, I felt like, okay, I think that's a definition I can work with. A social state or condition. Community as a social state or condition. Yeah. When I hear somebody talking about what community means to them, there's this special thing that takes place. It's like a shift in state, a shift in their condition. When somebody starts talking about what community means to them, it's like they momentarily get transported away from the room they're standing in and into the vault of their personal experiences. And when they return, they don't bring back a pat answer or a dictionary definition. They bring back something so much more profound. They return with an experience, a story. Maybe not a story that's explicitly shared, but the words that they speak carry the weight of personal experience. And I just love questions like this, like asking somebody, what does community mean to you? Because it makes somebody stop. It makes somebody think. It makes them dig a little deeper and give you an answer that hasn't been processed. You know, it's like the language for the answer doesn't directly exist in someone's vocabulary before it gets synthesized right there on the spot for you. It's synthesized from emotion and experience and their history. But the funny thing about this word community is that what it means to each of us is so nuanced by our own experiences. But at the same time, there's something so universal communicated by it. Just by the way these 4 syllables can be uttered. And it's the need, the necessity for community. You know, when somebody says community, when there's a huge grin on their face and their eyes light up, yeah, community. I know what that means. I've had that same smile and I've had those experiences that give you that smile. But when somebody says, community, and in this grief-stricken tone, as the body tightens and maybe the eyes shift and refocus in a distant gaze. Yeah. I've been there before too. I know that experience. And I know the pain that comes from losing community, from being hurt by it. It's just one word, but it's a word from a deep well, a word that carries a lot of weight, a word that's trying to communicate a state of lived experiences, not an abstract idea or some theory. It's an invitation into a common experience that can't be understood unless it's been known. So I've got a few people who were willing to dig down into the experiences and desires surrounding community in their lives. And they shared some words with me of what community means to them.
To me, having community is like needing air. So like you need air to live, so like you need community to live. It's the thing that gets us through the sadness and the grief and the loss, and when the pressures just seem so overwhelming. But it's also the moments of celebration that are immeasurably enhanced when we get to share that with those who we've created some sort of value.
I think it's really just kind of a shared vulnerability and a willingness to be open about who you are with either one other person or a group of people.
Community to me is people that show up, are honest, and are willing to talk about terrible stuff, good stuff, secrets. I think for me, I've experienced a lot of grief in the last few years. And I think I just realized that, like, community to me are the people that have shown up. And I don't think any of them have done anything specific. They just are there, and they don't go anywhere.
When I think of community, I think that's probably the big part, experiencing life together. The highs, the lows, the happiness, the sadness, kind of all the good parts and bad parts. Community is basically relationships where you're experiencing those things together.
You know, it looks like a place where I can be heard and seen and accepted and loved where I'm at. And I think also called out, you know, it's like called out and given feedback for things that maybe aren't, you know, healthy, you know, in my life, you know, and it's not given to tear me down as a person. But the intent is for me to like take that, and the expectation is that I will grow from the feedback.
I do know that community, it takes risk and it takes some vulnerability to be known. But for me, it has been just a persistent eroding of the false me, if that makes any sense. Like, I really do feel like there's some places in my life, some people in my life who know me in terms of the real, true inner Jeremy. And that is such a wonderful, like, it's hard to describe to people how liberating that is and how much that's contributed, I should say, to my confidence and to my feeling of health and well-being. And I just feel like, I think it's an area a lot of people suffer from in our society, is just feeling alone.
I've got one more insight that someone shared with me. And if you've heard nothing else in this episode, this is the one I really want you to hear and to pay attention to. This is John Cooper, and he just has such a way with words.
Oh, community. It seems to be the thing that everyone is chasing, but very few people know how to be a part of anymore. You know, it's community to me is just a place where I hold space for people to be who they are, where they are in their journey. You know, it's sometimes hard for people to find it, even in whether it be in church or other places. I think, you know, it needs to be a place where people don't have to wear a mask, don't have to pretend, just be who you are in your journey and know you're accepted. And I feel like that's what everybody wants, you know?
Well, I think the stage is set, and obviously there's plenty to explore throughout the rest of this season here. And Lauren Zanstra, this is one of my friends, and I think she's got some wise words to send us on our way as we close out this first episode here.
I think what I'm figuring out as we talk this through is that I have no idea how to do any of this community stuff.
I really think that might even be a good thesis for this season of the podcast. So many of us desire community, but I think really there are very, very few of us who really have any idea how to go about creating it. Well, I am so looking forward to sharing all the inspiration, ideas, and emotions that I've collected while recording this series. I think you're really going to enjoy it. A special thanks to everyone who shared their voices for today's episode. Got Tommy Allgood, Lauren Zanstra, Bethany Bean, Brian Ivester, Jonathan Bigelow, Jeremy Herzer, and John Cooper. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts with me. And now, if something special gets stirred up in you when you hear the word community, I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences too. And you can share those with me by calling 720-744-2587 and leaving a message in the show's voicemail inbox. And I'll include that information in the show notes of today's show. And I'll catch you next time.